The night Sofia Valente discovered her husband had been poisoning her for 3 years, she made a choice that would shake the criminal underworld to its core. For months, Adrian Moretti had disguised sedatives as thyroid medication, turning his wife into a controllable shadow while building a life with his pregnant mistress. But when his powerful uncle Lorenzo, the feared head of the De Luca crime empire, saw the truth behind Sofia's drugged exhaustion, everything changed. What started as forbidden protection became an explosive love that would ignite a war, expose deadly betrayals, and transform an invisible wife into an unstoppable queen. Follow this story to the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale travels. The morning light cut through the windows of the Moretti estate like broken glass, sharp and unforgiving. Sofia Valente stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her reflection a stranger she barely recognized. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her skin pale and drawn. She blinked slowly, fighting through the familiar fog that wrapped around her thoughts every morning. Her hands trembled as she reached for the pill bottle on the marble counter. The label read levothyroxine, a fight for thyroid support. Adrian had been so insistent she take them. Every single morning for the past 8 months, he'd personally handed her the small white tablet with a glass of water, watching until she swallowed. "For your health," he'd say, his voice clipped and businesslike. "You've been gaining weight, getting slower. The doctor says your thyroid needs regulation." Sofia had believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was her husband. They'd been married for 3 years, though it felt like 30. 3 years of slowly disappearing, of becoming smaller and quieter, until she wondered if she'd ever really existed at all. She swallowed the pill dry, wincing as it scraped down her throat. Within 20 minutes, the familiar heaviness would settle over her thoughts, making everything feel distant and manageable. The cruel comments would sting less. The loneliness would feel bearable. The humiliation would fade to background noise. Sofia descended the curved staircase carefully, one hand on the railing. The Moretti house was a monument to wealth and power. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork worth more than most people's homes. But it had never felt like hers. She was just another possession Adrian had acquired, displayed when convenient, ignored when not. "You're late." Adrian's voice cut through the breakfast room like a blade. He sat at the head of the long dining table, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. Everything about Adrian Moretti was precise, controlled, calculated. At 38, he was handsome in a cold way, sharp features, steel-gray eyes that never held warmth when they looked at her. "I'm sorry," Sofia murmured, sliding into her designated seat 3 chairs away from him. The distance was deliberate. He'd moved her farther away 6 months ago, claiming he needed space to think during meals. "Look at you." Adrian's lip curled in distaste. "Did you even brush your hair? We have the family dinner tonight. The entire De Luca family will be there, and you look like you just rolled out of bed." Sofia's hand instinctively went to her hair. She'd brushed it, hadn't she? The morning was already blurring at the edges. "I did brush it. You're useless." Adrian didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. His contempt was surgical, precise. 3 years, Sofia. 3 years I've given you everything, and you can't even make yourself presentable. My colleagues ask why I married someone so unremarkable. Do you know how that makes me look? The words landed like physical blows, but Sofia had learned not to flinch. Flinching only made it worse. "I'll do better," she whispered. "You always say that." Adrian returned his attention to his phone, dismissing her. "Wear the black dress tonight. It's the most flattering for your situation. And for God's sake, try not to embarrass me in front of my family." Sofia stared at the untouched breakfast in front of her. Fruit, toast, coffee. She wouldn't drink because it made her feel more jittery and confused. Her appetite had vanished months ago. Adrian said it was because she was finally developing discipline, but Sofia suspected it was the same fog that clouded her thoughts and made her limbs feel heavy. The sound of the front door opening broke the tense silence. Footsteps echoed across the marble foyer, confident, unhurried. Sofia knew those footsteps. Everyone in the family knew them. Lorenzo De Luca entered the breakfast room like he owned it. At 45, he commanded attention without effort, tall and powerfully built, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. He wore his authority the way other men wore expensive suits, naturally, inevitably. As the head of the De Luca crime family, Lorenzo was the man even dangerous men feared. He was also Adrian's uncle, though they couldn't have been more different. "Adrian," Lorenzo's voice was deep, textured with something that made people straighten their spines. "We need to discuss the shipment from Marseille." "Can't it wait?" Adrian barely looked up from his phone. "I'm in the middle of breakfast." "No." Lorenzo's gaze shifted to Sophia, and something flickered in those dark eyes. Concern? Anger? The fog in Sophia's head made it hard to read. "Sophia, you look tired." It was a simple observation, but spoken with more genuine care than anything Adrian had said to her in months. Sophia felt something crack inside her chest. "She's fine," Adrian answered for her. "Just lazy. Refuses to maintain herself properly." "I wasn't talking to you." Lorenzo's tone could have frozen fire. He pulled out the chair next to Sophia and sat down, his attention fully on her. "When was the last time you slept well?" Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't remember. The nights blurred together, restless hours where her mind felt simultaneously wired and exhausted, unable to settle into real rest. I don't know," she admitted. Lorenzo's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He looked at Adrian with an expression Sophia couldn't quite decipher through her mental haze. "She needs to see a real doctor, not whatever quack you've been taking her to." "She sees the family physician," Adrian said coldly. "Dr. Russo has been treating her thyroid condition. Everything is under control." "Is it?" Lorenzo leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving Adrian's face. "Because she looks worse every time I see her. Slower, weaker. That's not what proper medical treatment does." "Stay out of my marriage, Lorenzo." Adrian's voice dropped to a dangerous register. "What happens between me and my wife is none of your concern." Everything that happens in this family is my concern." Lorenzo stood smoothly, his presence filling the room. "That's what being the head of the family means, including making sure its members are protected and cared for." The weight of his words hung in the air. Sophia felt tears burning behind her eyes, though she couldn't quite grasp why. It had been so long since anyone had suggested she deserved protection or care. "I'll see you both tonight at the dinner," Lorenzo continued, his tone making it clear the discussion was over. But before he left, he placed a card on the table in front of Sophia. "This is my personal physician, Dr. Chen. If you ever want a second opinion about your health, call her directly. Tell her I sent you." He walked out, leaving a wake of tension behind him. Adrian's hand slammed down on the table, making Sophia jump. "Don't even think about it," he hissed. "You call that number and I'll make sure you regret it. Do you understand me?" Sophia nodded mutely, but her fingers had already closed around the card, tucking it into her palm where Adrian couldn't see. The rest of the day passed in the usual fog. Sophia moved through the mansion like a ghost, preparing for the evening's dinner with mechanical precision. She chose the black dress Adrian had specified, applied makeup with trembling hands, twisted her hair into an elegant knot that took 3 attempts to get right. By the time the car arrived to take them to the De Luca family estate, the afternoon pill had kicked in. Everything felt distant and muffled, like she was watching her own life through frosted glass. The De Luca estate made the Moretti house look modest by comparison. Set on 20 acres of meticulously landscaped grounds, the main house was a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa that had been in the family for 3 generations. Tonight, it blazed with lights and activity. The monthly family dinners were mandatory for all De Luca blood relatives and their spouses, a tradition Lorenzo maintained to keep the family connected and unified. Sophia followed Adrian through the massive front entrance, past the fountain in the courtyard, into the grand dining room where 40 people could sit comfortably. The room was already filling with family members. Lorenzo's cousins, their wives and husbands, children, grandchildren. The De Luca family was vast and powerful, their influence stretching across 3 states. "Adrian, there you are!" A woman's voice, bright and proprietary. Sophia turned to see Natasha Volkov gliding toward them, her model-thin figure wrapped in a designer dress that probably cost more than Sophia's entire wardrobe. Natasha was the daughter of a Russian arms dealer, beautiful and ambitious. and she'd been circling Adrian like a predator for the past year. What Sophia didn't know, what the pills kept her too foggy to notice, was that Natasha was much more than just a family friend. Natasha, Adrian's voice warmed in a way it never did for Sophia. You look stunning. You're too kind. Natasha's smile was razor sharp as her gaze flicked dismissively over Sophia. Sophia, that dress is conservative. How practical. It was an insult wrapped in politeness, and Sophia felt it land even through the pharmaceutical haze. But before she could respond, a commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. Lorenzo had arrived. He moved through the crowd with the easy confidence of a man who controlled everything he surveyed. People stepped aside, heads bowed in respect. This was his domain, his family, his empire. But when his gaze found Sophia across the room, standing isolated while Adrian laughed with Natasha, something dangerous flickered across his features. He changed direction, heading straight for her. Sophia, Lorenzo's voice cut through the noise. You'll sit with me tonight. It wasn't a request. Adrian's head snapped around, his expression darkening. She sits with me, Adrian said tightly. She's my wife. And this is my table. Lorenzo's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm rearranging the seating. Sophia will be on my right. You and Natasha can sit together since you seem so comfortable with that arrangement. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Sophia saw Adrian's jaw clench, saw the flash of rage in his eyes, but he couldn't object. Not here, not publicly, not when Lorenzo held all the power. Dinner was a surreal experience. Sophia sat at Lorenzo's right hand, acutely aware of the speculative looks from other family members. The way Adrian's gaze burned into her from across the table, the way Natasha's perfect smile had frozen into something brittle and false. Lorenzo treated Sophia like she mattered. He served her food, asked her opinions, included her in conversations. It was such a stark contrast to Adrian's treatment that Sophia felt dizzy with it, though that might have been the pills. Everything felt dreamlike and disconnected. You're not eating, Lorenzo observed quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I'm not very hungry, Sophia admitted. You never are anymore. It was a statement, not a question. How long have you been taking that medication? Sophia blinked slowly, trying to remember. 8 months, maybe 9. Adrian says I need it. For your thyroid. Yes. Lorenzo was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said something that cut through the fog like lightning. What were the symptoms that made him think you needed thyroid treatment? Sophia opened her mouth and realized she didn't have an answer. She couldn't remember being diagnosed, couldn't remember symptoms before the pills started. The only thing she remembered clearly was Adrian telling her she was sick, needed treatment, needed to trust him. I don't remember, she whispered. Lorenzo's hand found hers under the table, his grip warm and solid and real. Listen to me very carefully, Sophia. I want you to stop taking those pills, just for 3 days. Can you do that? Adrian will notice, she breathed. Let him notice. Lorenzo's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Tell him you forgot. Tell him anything, but I need you clear-headed for what's coming. What's coming? The truth. The dinner continued, but Sophia barely registered the courses, the conversations, the carefully orchestrated family politics playing out around her. Her mind kept circling back to Lorenzo's words. Stop taking the pills. It seemed impossible. Adrian monitored her so carefully. But as the evening wore on and Sophia watched her husband laugh intimately with Natasha, watched the way his hand lingered on the small of the other woman's back, watched the way they looked at each other like they shared secrets, something began to crack through the pharmaceutical haze. She wasn't imagining it. Whatever was happening between Adrian and Natasha, it was real. The dinner finally ended near midnight. Adrian was in a foul mood as they drove home, his hands tight on the steering wheel. What the fuck was that about? He demanded. Lorenzo seating you at his right hand like you're someone important? I don't know, Sophia said honestly. He just wanted to embarrass me. Adrian's voice was venomous. Make me look weak in front of the family, and you let him use you to do it. I didn't. Shut up. Adrian's hand lashed out, not hitting her, but slamming against the dashboard with enough force to make Sophia flinch. You're an embarrassment, a fat, useless embarrassment. Do you know what people say about you? About why I married you? Sophia closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. She'd heard variations of this speech 1,000 times. They say I must have been desperate, Adrian continued, his voice cruel and precise. That you must have had family, money, or connections. But you didn't even have that. You were just a fucking waitress I felt sorry for. The biggest mistake of my life. Each word was designed to hurt, to diminish, to destroy. And for 3 years, they had worked. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was Lorenzo's unexpected kindness. Maybe it was seeing Adrian's hand on Natasha's back. Maybe it was the question that had been planted in her mind. What symptoms did you have before the pills? When they got home, Adrian went straight to his study. He'd been sleeping there for the past 4 months, claiming he needed space to work. Sophia climbed the stairs to the bedroom that had once been theirs and was now just hers. She stared at the pill bottle on her nightstand. Lorenzo's voice echoed in her memory. Just for 3 days. With trembling hands, Sophia picked up the bottle and walked to the bathroom. She turned it upside down over the toilet, watching the white tablets tumble into the water. Then she flushed, watching them disappear, watching 3 years of fog and compliance spiral away. There was no going back now. The first day without the pills was hell. Sophia woke before dawn, her body screaming. Every nerve felt exposed and raw. Her hands shook, her head pounded. Nausea rolled through her in waves. This wasn't what stopping thyroid medication felt like. This was withdrawal. What has he been giving me? The question crystallized in her mind with terrifying clarity. Real thyroid medication didn't do this. Real medication didn't leave you foggy and compliant and disconnected from reality. Real medication didn't make your hand shake when you stopped taking it. Adrian had been drugging her with something else. The realization hit like a physical blow. Sophia barely made it to the bathroom before she vomited, her body purging whatever chemicals had been controlling her for months. She stayed there on the cold tile floor for over an hour, shaking and sick, and finally starting to understand. When Adrian came to check on her that morning, Sophia pretended to be asleep. She heard him set down her morning pill and water on the nightstand, heard him leave. The moment his footsteps faded, she flushed the pill. By the second day, the physical symptoms were subsiding, but everything else was getting sharper. Memories surfaced that she'd forgotten or suppressed. The way Adrian had isolated her from her few friends over the past year. The way he'd convinced her to quit her job as a waitress because it was beneath the wife of a Moretti. The way he'd slowly cut her off from anything that might have given her independence or clarity. And the way he'd been coming home later and later, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. Sophia's mind cataloged every sign she'd been too drugged to process. The mysterious charges on their credit card for jewelry she'd never received. The weekend business trips that always seemed to coincide with Natasha being out of town. The way they looked at each other at family dinners. By the third day, Sophia felt like a different person. Her mind was sharp for the first time in months. The fog had lifted, and what she saw beneath it was a nightmare of manipulation and betrayal. She was standing in the kitchen that afternoon drinking coffee, actual coffee that didn't make her feel jittery anymore because it wasn't interacting with sedatives. When Adrian's phone buzzed on the counter, he'd left it there while he went to take a shower. Sophia shouldn't have looked, but clarity brought courage, and courage brought action. She picked up the phone. No password. Adrian was arrogant enough to believe she'd never dare check. The messages that filled the screen made her blood run cold. Natasha. When are you going to tell her? I'm 3 months along now. We can't hide this forever. Adrian. Soon. I need to time it right. She's been too unstable lately. Once I have her committed for psychiatric evaluation, everything will be easier. Natasha. You've been saying that for weeks. I want to be with you publicly. I want our baby to have your name. Adrian. You will. Trust me. Once Sophia's out of the picture, we'll be free. The medication is working perfectly. Another few months and no judge will question her mental incompetence. Then I get everything and she gets nothing. Sophia's hands were steady as she took screenshots. Years of carefully manufactured compliance had taught her to be invisible, to move quietly, to go unnoticed. She forwarded the messages to her own email, then deleted the evidence of her snooping. When Adrian emerged from the shower 20 minutes later, Sophia was exactly where he'd left her, staring out the window with the blank expression he'd grown accustomed to. Did you take your pill today? He asked casually, toweling his hair. Yes, Sophia lied smoothly. Of course. Good. He kissed her forehead like she was a child. Can't have you getting worse. Dr. Russo says the medication is crucial for your stability. Dr. Russo. Another name to remember. Another person who'd been complicit in Adrian's plan to drug her, destroy her credibility, and steal everything from her. Adrian, Sophia said softly, testing her new clarity. Can I ask you something? What? Are you happy with me? He looked at her with something between surprise and contempt. What kind of question is that? I just wonder sometimes if you regret marrying me. Adrian's expression softened into something almost kind, which was somehow worse than his usual cruelty. Sophia, you're sick. Your mind creates these insecure thoughts. That's why you need the medication, need the treatment. I'm doing this because I care about you. It was textbook gaslighting, and for the first time, Sophia could see it for exactly what it was. Of course, she murmured. You're right. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just take your medication and trust me. He squeezed her shoulder, then checked his phone, the one she'd just violated. His expression didn't change as he scrolled through messages. He had no idea she'd been there, seen everything. That evening, Sophia received a text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Lorenzo. How are you feeling? Her heart hammered as she typed a response, deleting and retyping 3 times before sending. Sophia. Different, clearer, scared. Lorenzo. Good. Fear means you're seeing clearly. Can you meet me tomorrow? Somewhere Adrian won't know about? Sophia. Where? Lorenzo. There's a gallery on 5th Street, contemporary art. Adrian would never go there. He hates modern art. 2 o'clock. Sophia. I'll be there. Eat. The gallery was almost empty on a Tuesday afternoon. Sophia stood in front of a massive abstract painting, seeing it clearly for the first time in months. The colors were vivid, the shapes intentional, the chaos on the canvas somehow making perfect sense. It's about transformation, Lorenzo's voice came from behind her. The artist described it as depicting the moment someone realizes they've been living in a cage they didn't know existed. Sophia turned to face him. Lorenzo looked different away from the family dinners and the performative dynamics of the DeLuca estate. More human, but no less powerful. How did you know? She asked. About the pills? I didn't, not for certain. Lorenzo moved to stand beside her, both of them facing the painting. But I've spent 45 years reading people, Sophia. It's how I've survived in my world. And I watched you disappear over the past year. Watched you become a shadow. That's not illness. That's control. He's been giving me sedatives, Sophia said flatly. Probably benzodiazepines or something similar, disguised as thyroid medication. I suspected as much. His mistress is pregnant. They're planning to have me committed so he can take everything. Sophia's voice didn't shake. The tears she'd expected didn't come. She'd cried them all out over 3 years of humiliation. Now there was only cold, clear fury. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Natasha Volkov. You knew? I suspected. But I needed you to see it yourself. To be clear enough to understand what was happening. He turned to face her fully. Sophia, what do you want? It was the first time anyone had asked her that in 3 years. I want out, she said. I want him to pay for what he's done. And I want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. That can be arranged. Lorenzo's voice dropped to that dangerous register that made people's spines straighten. But you need to understand what you're walking into. Going against Adrian means going against a member of the family. There will be consequences, politics, danger. I don't care. You should. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. I can protect you, Sophia, but only if you're completely honest with me. About everything. Can you do that? Sophia met his gaze and saw something she'd never expected to find, genuine concern. This powerful, feared man, the head of a criminal empire, was looking at her like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, like she was real. Yes, she whispered. Then tell me everything, from the beginning. They sat in the gallery's small cafe for 2 hours. Sophia told him about the gradual isolation, the escalating verbal abuse, the moment the pills started, and how her life had dissolved into fog. She told him about the messages she'd found, about Natasha's pregnancy, about Adrian's plan to have her committed. Lorenzo listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "I have the screenshots," Sophia finished, "evidence of their affair, of their plan, but I don't know what to do with it." "You give it to me," Lorenzo said, "and you let me handle this the right way." "What's the right way?" Lorenzo's smile was sharp and cold. "Family dinner is in 2 weeks. That's when we expose everything, publicly, in front of the entire family. Adrian thinks he can manipulate the situation, control the narrative, but he's forgetting one crucial detail." "What's that?" "I control the family, not him." Lorenzo reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The touch sent electricity through Sophia's newly awakened nerves. "Stay strong for 2 more weeks. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Keep pretending to take the pills. Act foggy when he's around. Don't let him suspect anything has changed. And then? Then we destroy him." Sophia should have been afraid, should have questioned the wisdom of trusting one powerful man to save her from another. But something in Lorenzo's eyes told her this was different. He wasn't trying to control her. He was offering her a weapon. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight she didn't fully understand yet. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped in a life someone else designed for you. And because when I look at you, Sophia, I don't see the broken woman Adrian tried to create. I see someone extraordinary who's been buried under abuse and chemicals. I want to see what happens when she's finally free." The way he said it, the intensity in his gaze, made Sophia's breath catch. This was dangerous territory, emotion she had no right to feel for her husband's uncle. But the pills were gone, the fog had lifted, and for the first time in 3 years, Sophia felt alive. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." Lorenzo stood, his hand lingering on hers for a moment longer than necessary. "The hard part is just beginning." The next 2 weeks were an exquisite torture. Sophia played her role perfectly, the foggy, compliant wife Adrian expected. She pretended to take her pills, dumping them when he wasn't looking. She moved through the house like a ghost, letting him believe his control was absolute. But beneath the performance, she was gathering information. She found Dr. Russo's medical files in Adrian's study, files documenting medications she'd never actually needed, psychiatric evaluations she'd never undergone, all carefully constructed to build a case for her incompetence. She found bank statements showing money being funneled to accounts in Natasha's name. She found emails discussing how best to time the commitment proceedings. Every piece of evidence went to Lorenzo, and every few days they met. Always somewhere Adrian would never think to look. Art galleries, quiet cafes, and neighborhoods he considered beneath him. Once in a bookstore where Lorenzo bought her a first edition of Virginia Woolf because Sophia mentioned loving her work. During those meetings, something shifted between them. Lorenzo wasn't just her protector or ally. He was becoming the first person in years who truly saw her, who asked about her thoughts, her opinions, her dreams, who treated her like she had value beyond what she could provide or how well she could disappear. Sophia knew it was dangerous, knew she was vulnerable and he was powerful, and the situation was complicated in ways she couldn't fully navigate. But every time Lorenzo looked at her with those dark, intense eyes, she felt herself awakening further. Not just from the drugs, but from years of believing she was worthless. The night before the family dinner, Sophia couldn't sleep. She stood in her bedroom. Adrian was in his study as always, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was different from the one who'd existed 3 weeks ago. Her eyes were clear. Her spine was straight. She looked alive. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lorenzo. "Lorenzo, tomorrow changes everything. Are you ready?" Sophia. "Yes." Lorenzo. "Whatever happens, stay close to me. I won't let him hurt you anymore." Sophia stared at those words for a long time. "I won't let him hurt you anymore." It was a promise, a vow, and somehow she believed it completely. The DeLuca estate blazed with lights as Sophia and Adrian arrived for the family dinner. Sophia wore a red dress, not the conservative black Adrian had demanded, but a deep crimson that made her look alive and vibrant. Adrian had been too distracted to notice, too busy texting Natasha to care what his wife wore. The dining room was packed. Not just the usual family members, but others Sophia didn't recognize. Lorenzo's closest advisors, his legal counsel. This wasn't a normal dinner. This was something else. Lorenzo stood at the head of the table, commanding attention without effort. When his gaze found Sophia, something fierce and protective flashed across his features. "Thank you all for coming," Lorenzo began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "Tonight's dinner is special. Tonight we address a matter that affects the integrity of our entire family." Adrian stiffened beside Sophia. He'd sensed something was wrong. "What's this about, Lorenzo?" Adrian asked, his voice carefully neutral. "This is about trust, loyalty, and what happens when those values are betrayed." Lorenzo's gaze locked onto Adrian with the force of a physical blow. "This is about you, nephew, and your wife." The room went silent. Every eye turned to their end of the table. "I don't understand," Adrian said, but his hands had clenched into fists. "Don't you?" Lorenzo gestured, and one of his men handed him a folder. "Let me help clarify. For the past 9 months, you've been systematically drugging your wife with benzodiazepines disguised as thyroid medication. You've been building a false medical history to have her declared mentally incompetent, all while conducting an affair with Natasha Volkov, who is currently carrying your child." Gasps rippled through the room. Natasha, seated near the middle of the table, had gone white. "That's insane," Adrian spat. "She's delusional. Her mental illness—" "There is no mental illness." Lorenzo's voice could have cut diamond. "There's only your deliberate, calculated abuse, and we have proof." He opened the folder, and images projected onto the wall behind him, screenshots of Adrian and Natasha's messages, bank statements, Dr. Russo's falsified medical records, everything Sophia had gathered. "You tried to destroy your wife to steal her trust fund," Lorenzo continued. "Money that was protected by prenuptial agreement. Money you could only access if she was declared incompetent or dead. You chose the former. How merciful of you." Adrian lunged to his feet. "This is fabricated. She's working with you to—" "Sit down." Lorenzo's voice dropped to that register that made grown men obey without question. "You're not done hearing your crimes." Adrian sat, his face purple with rage. "You betrayed your marriage vows. You betrayed family trust. You committed fraud, conspiracy, and drugged your wife with controlled substances without her knowledge or consent." Lorenzo's gaze swept the room. "By the laws of this family and the laws of this country, Adrian Moretti is guilty. The only question now is punishment." Sophia sat frozen, watching her husband's world collapse around him. 3 years of abuse, of cruelty, of systematic destruction, all laid bare in front of the people whose respect he'd craved most. "Sophia," Lorenzo's voice softened when he said her name. "You're the injured party. What justice do you seek?" Every eye in the room turned to her. The invisible wife, the embarrassment, the woman Adrian had tried to erase. Sophia stood slowly, her legs steady, her voice clear. "I want a divorce," she said. "I want every penny of my trust fund protected. I want Dr. Russo stripped of his medical license for participating in this fraud. And I want Adrian to know what it feels like to have everything taken away." Her voice grew stronger with each demand. "You called me fat, useless, embarrassing. You made me believe I was worthless. But I'm not the one who should be ashamed. You are." The silence in the room was absolute. Then slowly, Lorenzo began to clap. Others joined in. A standing ovation for the woman who'd been invisible for 3 years and was finally being seen. Adrian's face twisted with hatred. "You bitch! You ungrateful!" He lunged across the table at Sophia, but Lorenzo was faster. He caught Adrian by the throat, slamming him back into his chair with effortless force. "You don't speak to her," Lorenzo said quietly. "You don't look at her. You don't breathe in her direction. From this moment on, Sophia is under my personal protection. Touch her, threaten her, so much as think about her wrong, and I will destroy you in ways that make tonight look gentle. Do you understand?" Adrian's eyes bulged, his face red, but he managed a jerky nod. Lorenzo released him and turned to Sophia, his expression transforming from cold fury to gentle concern. "Come with me. You shouldn't be here for the rest of this. He offered his hand. Sophia took it, feeling the solid warmth of his grip, the promise of protection in the way his fingers closed around hers. As Lorenzo led her from the dining room, Sophia heard the family council beginning their formal proceedings against Adrian. His protests, his rage, his desperate attempts to salvage his reputation, all fading behind her as she stepped into a future she'd never imagined possible. Lorenzo took her to his private study, a room she'd never entered before. It was quieter here, insulated from the chaos erupting in the dining room. "Are you all right?" he asked, still holding her hand. "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "I should feel victorious, but I just feel empty." "That's normal. You've been surviving for so long, there hasn't been room to feel anything else." Lorenzo guided her to a leather sofa sitting beside her. "It will take time to process everything, to heal." "Thank you." Sophia looked up at him, this powerful man who'd chosen to protect her when he had no obligation to do so. "For believing me, for helping me, for—" "Don't." Lorenzo's thumb brushed across her knuckles. "You did this yourself, Sophia. You found the evidence. You chose to fight back. I just provided the platform. You provided more than that." Sophia's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You made me remember what it felt like to matter." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither of them had acknowledged until this moment. Lorenzo's dark eyes held hers, and Sophia saw in them a hunger that matched the awakening inside her own chest. "Sophia," he said carefully, "you're vulnerable right now, emotional. You need time to—" "Don't tell me what I need." The words came out sharper than intended, but Sophia didn't take them back. "I've had 3 years of someone else deciding what I need, what I feel, what I'm allowed to want. I'm done with that. Then what do you want?" It was the question he'd asked her in the gallery 2 weeks ago, but this time the answer was different. This time, Sophia knew exactly what she wanted. "You," she whispered. Lorenzo's control, that legendary, unshakable control, fractured. He pulled her to him, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that burned away every lingering trace of the fog, the fear, the years of believing she was worthless. Sophia kissed him back with a desperate hunger, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body pressing against his like she could merge with his strength and never be vulnerable again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. "This is dangerous," he said roughly. "You're still legally married. Adrian will use this against you." "I don't care." "You should. He's vindictive and desperate. That's a lethal combination." "Then protect me." Sophia met his gaze unflinchingly. "You said you would. So protect me while I figure out how to be myself again. Help me remember what it feels like to be wanted instead of tolerated, to be valued instead of controlled." Lorenzo's hands framed her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so dangerous. "You have no idea what you're asking for." "Then show me." He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. And in that kiss, Sophia felt the final walls crumble. The woman Adrian had tried to destroy was gone. In her place was someone new, someone stronger, fiercer, more alive than she'd ever been. Whatever came next, Sophia knew she would never be invisible again. The kiss lasted until reality crashed back in the form of raised voices from the dining room. Lorenzo pulled away first, his breathing uneven, his eyes dark with want and warning. "Stay here," he said, his voice rough. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me." Before Sophia could respond, he was gone, moving back toward the chaos with the predatory grace of a man born to command. She heard the study door lock click behind him and stood alone in the sudden silence, her lips still burning from his kiss, her heart hammering against her ribs. She should feel guilty, should feel afraid, but all Sophia felt was alive. The sounds from the dining room grew louder, Adrian's voice rising in fury, other voices arguing, the sharp crack of something breaking. Sophia moved to the window, watching the manicured gardens beyond, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 3 hours. Her marriage was over, her husband's crimes were exposed, and she'd just kissed the most powerful man in the criminal underworld. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings. Lorenzo was dangerous. He was Adrian's uncle. He controlled an empire built on violence and fear. Getting involved with him was trading one cage for another, wasn't it? But the part of her that had spent 3 years suffocating under Adrian's control, the part that had finally broken free from the chemical fog, that part knew the truth. Lorenzo had given her choices. Adrian had taken them away. The difference was everything. An hour passed before Lorenzo returned. When he unlocked the study door and stepped inside, Sophia saw the cold fury still simmering in his eyes. "What happened?" she asked. "The family council has stripped Adrian of his position and authority. His accounts are frozen. He's been ordered to surrender all family assets, including the house you've been living in." Lorenzo moved to the bar cart, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to Sophia. He threatened to go to the police, expose family business. That was his final mistake. Sophia took the glass with trembling hands. "What will happen to him?" "That depends on whether he's smart enough to accept exile or stupid enough to keep fighting." Lorenzo's expression was carved from stone. "But that's not your concern anymore. You need to think about yourself now. Where you'll stay. What you need to feel safe." "I don't know where to go," Sophia admitted. The realization hit her like ice water. She had no friends left. Adrian had isolated her systematically. Her family was scattered, distant both geographically and emotionally. The house she'd lived in for 3 years had never been hers. "I have nowhere. You have here." Lorenzo's voice gentled. "I have a guest house on the property. Private, secure. You can stay there as long as you need." "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Sophia, Adrian will lash out. He's cornered and humiliated. Until the divorce is finalized and he's dealt with permanently, you need protection. And you're offering to be my protector?" The question came out more challenging than Sophia intended. Lorenzo's lips curved into something too sharp to be called a smile. "I'm offering to be whatever you need me to be. Protector, ally, friend." His gaze dropped to her mouth, and the air between them crackled. "Or more, if that's what you want. But only when you're ready, only when you're sure." "I kissed you first," Sophia reminded him. "You did, but you're also coming out of 3 years of abuse and manipulation. I won't take advantage of that, no matter how much I want to." The admission hung between them, honest and raw. Sophia's breath caught. "How long have you wanted to?" Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes holding secrets. "Since the first family dinner after you married Adrian, you wore a blue dress. You smiled at something his cousin said, and for just a moment, you looked happy. Then Adrian made some cutting remark, and I watched that light die in your eyes." His jaw tightened. "I wanted to kill him right then. Instead, I watched him destroy you piece by piece for 3 years. That stops now." Sophia's heart was thundering so loud she was sure he could hear it. "Why didn't you say something before?" "Because you were married to my nephew. Because I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe you were happy. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there." Lorenzo's hand came up, his fingers ghosting along her jawline without quite touching. "And because men in my world don't believe in love. We believe in power, control, strategy. But watching you wake up these past few weeks, watching you fight back and find yourself again, that changed something in me." "What did it change?" "Made me believe that maybe some things are worth more than power." The confession was more intimate than any kiss. Sophia swayed toward him, drawn by gravity she couldn't resist, but Lorenzo stepped back. "Not tonight," he said firmly. "Tonight you need rest. Tomorrow you need to start building your new life, and I need to make sure Adrian doesn't do anything else stupid." He was right. Sophia knew he was right, but every nerve in her body was screaming for the connection his kiss had promised, for the feeling of being wanted instead of tolerated, valued instead of controlled. "The guest house?" she asked quietly. "I'll have it prepared. My driver will take you to collect whatever you need from the Moretti house tomorrow. We'll have security with you." "Adrian will be there." "Adrian will be smart enough to stay away from you if he values his life." Lorenzo's voice dropped to that dangerous register. "And if he's not, he'll learn." A knock on the study door interrupted them. "Boss?" A man's voice, careful and respectful. "The council is ready with their final decision." Lorenzo glanced at Sophia. "Stay here. I'll be back." He left again, and this time Sophia poured herself another whiskey, her hands steadier than they'd been in months. She could hear the murmur of voices from the dining room, the formal cadence of the family council delivering judgment. She wondered what Adrian was thinking right now, watching his carefully constructed world collapse. Did he feel a fraction of the fear he'd inflicted on her? The humiliation? She hoped so. When Lorenzo returned 20 minutes later, his expression was grim satisfaction. "It's done. Adrian has been given 48 hours to leave the city. If he returns, he'll be considered an enemy of the family." What about Natasha? Her father was informed of her role in this. He's furious. The Volkovs don't tolerate scandal. She'll be dealt with by her own family. Lorenzo moved to stand in front of her. "You're free, Sophia. Legally, it will take time for the divorce to finalize, but effectively, your marriage is over." Free. The word should have filled her with joy, but instead, Sophia felt untethered. She'd spent 3 years in a cage. Now the door was open, but she had no idea how to fly. "I don't know who I am without him," she whispered. "Without the fear and the control and the constant criticism, I don't know what I want or who I'm supposed to be." "Then figure it out." Lorenzo's voice was gentle, but firm. "You have time, space, resources. Figure out who Sophia is when no one is telling her who to be. Will you help me? If that's what you want." Sophia met his gaze, seeing the want there, carefully leashed. Seeing the respect, the protection, the promise of something she didn't have words for yet. "It is." The corner of Lorenzo's mouth lifted. "Then I'm yours." The words sent heat spiraling through her. Not possession, but partnership. Not control, but choice. Everything Adrian had never been. "Come on," Lorenzo said, offering his hand. "Let me show you the guest house." They walked through the darkened gardens, security personnel maintaining discreet distance but ever present. The guest house was smaller than the main estate but still luxurious. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private courtyard. "It's beautiful," Sophia breathed. "It's safe," Lorenzo corrected. "That matters more." He showed her the security system, the panic buttons, the direct line to his personal phone. Every precaution, every measure designed to keep her protected. When they finished the tour, they stood in the main living area, neither quite ready to say goodnight. "Thank you," Sophia said, "for everything, for believing me, for—" Lorenzo kissed her. Not the desperate, consuming kiss from before, but something softer, a promise, not a claim. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "Sleep well, Sophia. Tomorrow starts your new life." Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the beautiful, safe space he'd provided. Sophia locked the door behind him and leaned against it, her fingers touching her lips, her body humming with feelings she'd thought Adrian had killed. She was free, terrified, exhilarated, and for the first time in 3 years she couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. The next morning arrived with brilliant sunshine and a knock on the guest house door at 8 sharp. Sophia, who'd slept better than she had in months, opened it to find a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and professional demeanor. "Mrs. Moretti, I'm Maria Santos, Mr. DeLuca's head of household. He asked me to help you get settled and accompany you to collect your belongings from the Moretti residence." Maria's smile was warm. "I've brought breakfast, and we have a car ready whenever you are." Sophia invited her in, grateful for the company and the normalcy of shared coffee and conversation. Maria was efficient and kind, asking what Sophia needed without being invasive, offering help without being controlling. It was such a stark contrast to the last 3 years that Sophia found herself relaxing in ways she'd forgotten were possible. By 9:30, they were in one of the DeLuca family's armored SUVs, 2 security personnel in the front seat, heading toward the house Sophia had shared with Adrian. Her stomach twisted as they pulled up to the familiar property. "We'll go in with you," one of the security men said. His name was Marco, and he had the build of someone who could break a man in half. "Mr. DeLuca's orders. You're not to be alone with Adrian Moretti under any circumstances." The house felt different as Sophia walked through it. Smaller, somehow, less intimidating. She moved through the rooms mechanically, packing clothes, a few books, the small items that had been hers before the marriage. There wasn't much. Adrian had systematically replaced everything she'd owned with things he'd chosen, things that reflected his taste, his control. She was in the bedroom, folding clothes into a suitcase, when she heard the front door slam. Get the fuck out of my house! Adrian's voice, raw with rage. Sophia's hands froze on the silk blouse she'd been folding. Marco appeared in the bedroom doorway instantly. Stay here, he ordered, then moved toward the commotion. But Sophia couldn't stay. Some perverse need to face him, to see him with clear eyes, drew her to the top of the stairs. Adrian stood in the foyer, disheveled and wild-eyed, facing off against Marco and his partner. This is my house, Adrian was screaming. My wife, You have no right. You have no rights. Lorenzo's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He'd appeared from somewhere, moving with that predatory calm. The house belongs to the family. Sophia is under my protection. You have no claim to either. Adrian's gaze snapped up, finding Sophia on the stairs. His expression twisted into something ugly and desperate. You bitch! You think you've won? You think he actually cares about you? He laughed, the sound unhinged. He's using you to get back at me. The moment he's bored, you'll be nothing again. The words were designed to hurt, to make her doubt. 3 weeks ago, they would have worked. But Sophia had spent those weeks clearing the fog from her mind, and she saw Adrian clearly now. Saw the desperation, the pathetic need to wound because he'd been wounded. You're pathetic, she said quietly, descending the stairs with measured steps. You spent 3 years trying to convince me I was worthless because you knew the truth, that you were, that you needed to destroy me to feel powerful because you had nothing else. I gave you everything. Adrian lurched forward, but Marco blocked him effortlessly. You gave me nothing but pain. Sophia reached the bottom of the stairs, Lorenzo moving to stand beside her, a solid presence. And now you have nothing. No wife, no family, no power, just yourself. I hope that's enough, Adrian. I really do, because it's all you're ever going to have. Adrian's face purpled with rage. He tried to push past Marco, hands reaching for Sophia with clear intent to harm. What happened next occurred so fast Sophia barely tracked it. Lorenzo moved like liquid violence, catching Adrian's wrist and twisting it behind his back with surgical precision, forcing him to his knees. I warned you, Lorenzo said, his voice deadly calm. Told you what would happen if you threatened her. Did you think I was bluffing? Let go of me, Adrian thrashed, but Lorenzo's grip was unbreakable. You have 24 hours to leave the city. That timeline just became 12. If I see you, hear about you, or catch even a whisper that you're within 100 miles of Sophia, I will end you. Not quickly, not mercifully. I will make you beg for death and deny you that kindness. Do you understand? Adrian's response was a choked gasp of pain as Lorenzo increased pressure on his wrist. I said, do you understand? Yes, Adrian spat. Yes, I understand. Lorenzo released him with a shove that sent Adrian sprawling on the marble floor. Get him out of here, he ordered Marco. Make sure he leaves, now. As security hauled Adrian to his feet and dragged him toward the door, he twisted back to look at Sophia, his expression pure venom. You'll regret this, both of you. I'll make sure of it. The threat hung in the air even after the door slammed behind him. Sophia found herself trembling, not with fear but with the adrenaline crash of confrontation. Lorenzo's hand found the small of her back, steady and warm. Are you all right? Yes. Sophia took a shaky breath. Actually, I am. Is that strange? No. Lorenzo's thumb traced small circles through her blouse. That's strength. You faced him without fear. That's not strange. That's remarkable. Maria appeared from the kitchen, her expression concerned. I have your things packed, Mrs. Moretti. Shall we go? Please. And Maria? Sophia turned to face her. It's just Sophia. I'm not Mrs. Moretti anymore. The smile Maria gave her was brilliant. Of course, Sophia. The return to the DeLuca estate felt like returning to sanctuary. As they unloaded Sophia's meager belongings into the guest house, she realized how little of her life with Adrian she actually wanted to keep. Most of it could burn for all she cared. Start fresh, Lorenzo suggested, watching her frown at the clothes she'd packed. Buy new things, things you choose, things that make you feel like yourself. I don't know what I like anymore, Sophia admitted. Adrian chose everything. My clothes, my hair, what I ate, where I went. I don't even know what my taste is. Then experiment. Try things. Fail at them. That's what freedom means. Lorenzo had business to attend to. He ran a criminal empire, after all. But he left her with Maria's number, his personal line, and strict instructions to call if she needed anything. Alone in the guest house, Sophia spent the afternoon just breathing, just existing, without anyone telling her how to do it right. That evening, a package arrived. Inside was a tablet with a note in Lorenzo's bold handwriting. For exploring. No restrictions, no monitoring. Just you and whatever interests you. Mopo L. Sophia curled up on the sofa and spent hours falling down research rabbit holes, art history, cooking techniques, travel destinations, book recommendations. Things she'd always been curious about but never had the mental space to explore. By the time midnight rolled around, she'd filled a notebook with ideas, interests, dreams she'd forgotten she had. Her phone buzzed with a text. Lorenzo. Are you still awake? Sophia. Yes. Exploring all the things I forgot I cared about. Lorenzo. Good. Sleep well. Tomorrow I'd like to take you somewhere, if you're willing. Sophia. Where? Lorenzo. It's a surprise. Trust me? Sophia stared at those two words. 3 weeks ago, she couldn't have answered yes to anyone. But Lorenzo had earned it, not through control or manipulation, but through consistent action, through keeping every promise he'd made. Sophia. Yes, I trust you. The next morning, Lorenzo picked her up in a sleek black car, driving himself rather than using his usual driver. He was dressed casually, or as casually as a man like him could manage, dark jeans and a button-down that made him look younger, more approachable. Where are we going? Sophia asked as they pulled out of the estate. You'll see. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for rolling countryside. When Lorenzo finally pulled off onto a private road, Sophia gasped. Before them stretched acres of vineyards, the vines heavy with late-season grapes, a beautiful stone house nestled among them. This is mine, Lorenzo said quietly. My private retreat. The only people who know about it are those I trust absolutely. I wanted you to see it. He showed her around, the modest house with its comfortable furniture and walls lined with books, the wine cellar he'd been cultivating for years, the terrace overlooking the vineyards where the sunset painted everything gold. It's beautiful, Sophia breathed. Do you come here often? Not as often as I should. My life is complicated, dangerous. But here I can just be Lorenzo, not the Don, not the head of the family, just a man who makes wine and reads books and doesn't have to constantly watch for knives aimed at his back. He'd brought them lunch, simple food, good wine, conversation that flowed easily. They talked about everything and nothing. Sophia told him about her childhood, her dreams of being an artist that she'd abandoned when life got difficult. Lorenzo talked about his own past, the weight of inheriting power he'd never asked for, the loneliness of being surrounded by people but trusted by few. Why did you show me this place? Sophia asked as they sat on the terrace watching the sun sink lower. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Because I wanted you to know who I am when the world isn't watching. Because everything between us has been crisis and protection and family politics. I wanted you to see that there's more to me than the man who controls the DeLuca empire. I already knew that. Did you? Yes. Sophia turned to face him fully. The man who controls the empire wouldn't have noticed I was suffering, wouldn't have cared enough to investigate, wouldn't have risked family conflict to protect someone who was nothing to him. That man would have let Adrian destroy me because it was easier. But you didn't. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. Lorenzo's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. You were never invisible to me, Sophia. That was the problem. Why was it a problem? Because you were married to my nephew. Because I'm not a good man who deserves good things. Because I've done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I'm selfish enough that I don't care. I want you anyway. Sophia's heart was racing. I want you too. You think you do, but you don't really know me yet. Then let me know you. She shifted closer, her free hand coming up to touch his face. Stop protecting me from yourself. I'm stronger than you think. Lorenzo caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. You're the strongest person I know. That's not the question. The question is whether you're ready for what being with me means, the danger, the violence, the things I'll have to do to keep you safe. You're already keeping me safe. From Adrian. But there are others, rivals, enemies, people who would hurt you to hurt me the moment they knew you mattered. His expression was tortured. I can't lose you to that, Sophia. Better to keep distance than to paint a target on your back. It's too late for distance. Sophia leaned in, her lips a breath away from his. You already matter to me. The target's already there. So stop being noble and kiss me. Lorenzo's control shattered. He pulled her to him, his mouth claiming hers with an intensity that stole her breath. This wasn't the gentle promise from the guest house or the desperate connection from his study. This was hunger, want, need, everything they'd both been denying. Sophia kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. She'd been half alive for 3 years, and Lorenzo made her feel like she was burning from the inside out, every nerve awakening, every sensation magnified. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. This is dangerous. I don't care. You should. I spent 3 years being careful, being controlled, being what someone else wanted me to be. I'm done with that. Sophia met his dark gaze unflinchingly. I want you. I want this. And I don't care if it's complicated or dangerous or if the timing is wrong. Life is too short to deny what makes you feel alive. Lorenzo's laugh was rough. You're going to destroy me. Good. Then we'll be even. He kissed her again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. They moved inside, to the comfortable bedroom Lorenzo had created for himself in this sanctuary, and Sophia felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. Making love to Lorenzo was nothing like the mechanical, obligatory encounters with Adrian. This was passion, connection, two people choosing each other with full awareness and complete desire. Lorenzo touched her like she was precious, like every inch of her mattered, like he wanted to memorize her with his hands and mouth. And Sophia, finally free from the fog that had controlled her for so long, finally allowed to want and feel and choose, gave herself over to sensation completely. She was loud, demanding, unrestrained, everything Adrian had shamed her for being. Lorenzo loved it, encouraged it, told her she was beautiful and perfect in his. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the fading light, Sophia's head on Lorenzo's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back. I don't regret this, she said quietly. I know I should probably wait, process the divorce, figure myself out first. But I don't regret this. Neither do I. Lorenzo's voice rumbled under her ear. Though I should. You deserve better than a man like me. Stop telling me what I deserve. Sophia propped herself up to look at him. I know what I deserve. Respect. Protection. Someone who sees me as an equal partner, not property. You give me all of that. I also give you danger. Life is dangerous. At least with you, I'm choosing my danger instead of having it inflicted on me. Lorenzo cupped her face, his expression fierce. I will protect you with everything I have. You understand that? Everything. Anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me. I know. Sophia kissed him softly. But I'm not asking you to fight all my battles. I'm asking you to stand beside me while I learn to fight my own. Something in Lorenzo's expression shifted. Respect, admiration, maybe even love, though it was too soon for either of them to use that word. Then that's what I'll do. They stayed at the vineyard through sunset and into the evening, talking and making love, and existing in a bubble separate from the complicated reality waiting for them. But eventually, reality called. Lorenzo had business to handle, and Sophia needed to start building the life she'd claimed she wanted. The drive back to the estate was quiet, comfortable silence rather than awkward. When Lorenzo walked her to the guest house door, he kissed her one more time. Tomorrow I have meetings all day. But tomorrow night, have dinner with me? Properly. A real date. Sophia smiled. I'd like that. Good. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Not for me. For yourself. As Sophia lay in bed that night, her body pleasantly sore and her mind clearer than it had been in years, she thought about Lorenzo's words. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. The problem was, she didn't own anything like that. Everything in her closet had been chosen by Adrian or approved by his critical eye. Tomorrow, she decided, she'd fix that. Tomorrow, she'd start becoming whoever Sophia was meant to be. But tonight, she'd just enjoy the feeling of being wanted, valued, and finally free. Morning came with Maria knocking softly at the guest house door, a knowing smile on her face that made Sophia blush despite herself. The older woman carried coffee and fresh pastries, setting them on the kitchen counter with practiced efficiency. "Mr. DeLuca asked me to take you shopping today," Maria said, her tone carefully neutral. "He thought you might want to find something for dinner tonight." "He told you about that?" "He tells me very little, but I've worked for him for 15 years. I know when something important is happening." Maria's smile warmed. "And you, Sophia, are important." They spent the morning in the city's most exclusive boutiques, places Sophia had never dared enter during her marriage to Adrian. He'd always chosen her clothes from conservative collections, favoring colors and styles that made her disappear rather than stand out. Now Maria encouraged her to try everything: bold colors, daring cuts, pieces that celebrated her body rather than hiding it. In the fitting room of the third boutique, Sophia stared at her reflection wearing a deep emerald dress that hugged every curve. The neckline was lower than anything she'd owned in years, the fabric luxurious against her skin. She looked powerful, dangerous, nothing like the invisible wife Adrian had created. "That's the one," Maria said from outside the curtain. "I can hear it in your silence." Sophia bought the dress along with shoes that made her feel 6 feet tall and jewelry that caught the light like fire. When Maria tried to put it all on Lorenzo's account, Sophia stopped her. "Use my trust fund," she said firmly. "I want to buy this myself." Maria's expression softened with understanding. "Of course." They returned to the estate laden with bags, and Sophia spent the afternoon preparing for the evening with a care she hadn't felt in years. She styled her hair herself, applied makeup that enhanced rather than concealed, slipped into the emerald dress, and felt something inside her click into place. This was who she was meant to be. Not the foggy, controlled shadow, but this woman staring back from the mirror with clear eyes and a strong spine. Lorenzo arrived at the guest house at 7 sharp, and the look on his face when Sophia opened the door made every penny worth it. He stood frozen, his dark eyes tracking over her slowly, reverently. "You're stunning," he said, his voice rough. "I feel powerful," Sophia replied, and meant it. "Good." Lorenzo offered his arm. "Because tonight, I'm taking you somewhere the entire family will see us together. I want you to be ready for that." Sophia's stomach flipped. "You mean, I'm done hiding what you mean to me. If we're doing this, Sophia, we do it openly. No shame, no apologies. But that means people will talk, judge. Some will disapprove." "Let them." Sophia took his arm, feeling the solid strength beneath the expensive fabric of his suit. "I spent 3 years caring what people thought. I'm done with that too." Lorenzo's smile was fierce and proud. He drove them to an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city, the kind of place where the powerful came to see and be seen. The maitre d' recognized Lorenzo immediately, ushering them to a private corner table that still offered a view of the entire dining room. Sophia felt eyes on them the moment they sat down. She recognized some faces from family dinners, cousins, associates, people who'd witnessed her humiliation at Adrian's hands. Now they watched her walk in on Lorenzo DeLuca's arm, wearing confidence like armor, and she could practically hear the gossip igniting. "They're staring," Sophia murmured. "Let them stare." Lorenzo's hand found hers across the table. "You have nothing to be ashamed of. Adrian's only been gone 3 days. Adrian destroyed your marriage long before 3 days ago. Everyone with eyes could see it." Lorenzo's thumb traced circles on her wrist. "And anyone who wants to judge can answer to me." Dinner was exquisite. Courses of food Sophia actually tasted for the first time in months. Wine that didn't interact with sedatives because there were no sedatives, conversation that ranged from serious to playful without ever feeling forced. Lorenzo asked about her morning shopping, her interests, her thoughts on everything from art to politics. He listened like her opinions mattered, challenged her when he disagreed, laughed at her observations. It was the first real date Sophia had been on in years, and she felt like she was discovering what partnership could actually mean. Halfway through dessert, a woman approached their table. Sophia recognized her, Gianna DeLuca, Lorenzo's cousin and one of the family's senior advisors. She was elegant and sharp-eyed, her expression carefully neutral. "Lorenzo," Gianna said, "I hope I'm not interrupting." "You are, but I assume it's important." Lorenzo didn't release Sophia's hand. "I wanted to speak with Sophia, actually." Gianna's gaze shifted. "May I?" Lorenzo looked at Sophia, letting her decide. She nodded, curiosity overriding caution. Gianna slid into the empty chair beside them. "I owe you an apology," she said directly. "I saw what Adrian was doing to you at family dinners, the way he spoke to you, dismissed you, made you small. I said nothing because I convinced myself it wasn't my business. That was cowardice, and I'm sorry." Sophia blinked, surprised by the directness. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you're with Lorenzo now, which means your family in a different way. And because I want you to know that not everyone in this world is like Adrian. Some of us actually believe in loyalty and protection." Gianna's expression hardened. "What he did, drugging you, planning to have you committed, that violated every code we live by. If the council hadn't exiled him, many of us would have demanded worse." "Thank you," Sophia said quietly. "That means more than you know." Gianna stood, nodding to both of them. "Enjoy your evening. And Sophia, that dress is perfect. You look like someone who could run this family if she wanted to." After she left, Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. "That was unexpected." "She's right, though," Sophia said. "I was so isolated, I thought everyone saw me the way Adrian did, like I was nothing." "You were never nothing. You just couldn't see yourself clearly through the fog he created." Lorenzo signaled for the check. "Ready to go? Or would you prefer to stay and let them stare some more?" "Let's go home." The word slipped out naturally, and Sophia realized she meant it. The DeLuca estate felt more like home than anywhere she'd lived with Adrian. They walked through the restaurant hand in hand, Sophia's head high, meeting curious stares with calm confidence. Let them look. Let them judge. She was done shrinking to make other people comfortable. The drive back to the estate was quiet, charged with the same electric awareness that had sparked between them at the vineyard. When Lorenzo walked her to the guest house door, Sophia didn't let go of his hand. "Come inside," she said. "Sophia, I know what I'm asking." She met his gaze steadily. "And I know what I want. Stop protecting me from choices I'm ready to make." Lorenzo's restraint crumbled. He followed her inside, kicking the door shut behind them, pulling her into his arms with the urgency of a man who'd been holding back too long. They made it as far as the couch before clothes started coming off, before gentle turned desperate, before everything dissolved into heat and need and connection. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Sophia's head on Lorenzo's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. "I'm falling for you," she whispered into the darkness. "I know it's too fast and too soon and probably completely insane, but I need you to know." Lorenzo's arms tightened around her. "It's not insane. And it's not one-sided." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "But I need you to understand what that means. The people who matter to me become targets. I have enemies, Sophia, dangerous ones. Being with me puts you at risk. Being alive puts me at risk." Sophia propped herself up to look at him. "Adrian could have killed me with those drugs. A car accident could take me out tomorrow. Nothing is guaranteed, but this, what we have, this makes me feel alive. I'm not giving that up because of hypothetical danger." "It's not hypothetical, it's real." Lorenzo's expression was troubled. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make you understand." "Then help me understand. Tell me about your world. The real parts, not the sanitized version." Lorenzo was quiet for a long time, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with things he'd carried alone for too long. "I inherited this empire when I was 23. My father was killed by a rival family, and suddenly I was responsible for hundreds of people, millions in assets, operations across 3 states. I had to learn fast or lose everything." His jaw tightened. "I've made decisions that haunt me. Ordered things done that can't be undone. I've traded mercy for survival more times than I can count." "But you showed me mercy," Sophia said quietly, "when you could have ignored what Adrian was doing." "That wasn't mercy. That was justice." Lorenzo met her gaze. "There's a difference. Mercy is weakness in my world. Justice is power applied correctly. What Adrian did to you demanded correction. And what are you applying to me? Power or mercy? The question caught him off guard. Lorenzo studied her face in the dim light, seeing past the beautiful woman to the sharp mind beneath. Neither. With you, I'm just a man trying to be worthy of something good. Trying to prove I'm more than the sum of my worst actions. You are. Sophia kissed him softly. You're the man who saw me when I was invisible, who gave me choices when everyone else took them away, who makes me feel strong instead of small. That's who you are to me. That's who I want to be for you. Lorenzo pulled her closer. But I need you to promise me something. What? If this life becomes too much, if the danger or the darkness gets to be too heavy, you'll tell me. You won't just endure it because you think you have to. You'll be honest. I promise. Sophia meant it. As long as you promise the same, no more trying to protect me by pushing me away. Deal. They sealed it with a kiss that turned into something more. And by the time exhaustion finally claimed them, the sun was starting to paint the horizon pink. Sophia woke late the next morning to find Lorenzo already gone. A note on the pillow beside her, written in his bold handwriting, "Meetings all day. Security will be outside if you need anything. Dinner tonight at the main house. The family wants to officially welcome you. L. The family." Sophia's stomach fluttered with nerves, but she pushed them aside. She'd faced Adrian's exposure and survived. She could handle a family dinner. Maria arrived around noon with lunch and news. Adrian left the city last night, she reported, setting down a tray of food. Mr. DeLuca had him followed to make sure he actually went. He's gone, Sophia. For good. Relief flooded through her so intensely Sophia had to sit down. Where did he go? Somewhere in the Midwest, from what I understand. Far enough that he won't be tempted to come back. Maria's expression was satisfied. His accounts are still frozen. The house has been reclaimed by the family. Natasha Volkov was sent back to Russia in disgrace. It's over. Over. The word felt surreal. 3 years of abuse, manipulation, and control. Over. Just like that. How do you feel? Maria asked gently. I don't know, Sophia admitted. Relieved. Angry that it took this long. Guilty that I didn't see it sooner. Don't. Maria sat beside her, her tone firm. Don't carry guilt for what he did to you. He drugged you, isolated you, systematically destroyed your ability to think clearly. That's not your fault. That's his crime. Sophia nodded, letting the words sink in. Maria was right. She'd been a victim, yes, but she was also a survivor, and now she was becoming something more, something she got to define for herself. The afternoon passed in peaceful normalcy. Sophia painted for the first time in years, setting up an easel in the guest house courtyard and losing herself in color and form. She was rusty, her technique rough, but the joy of creating something flowed through her like water finding its course. Lorenzo found her there around 5, paint smudged on her cheek, completely absorbed in capturing the play of light through the fountain spray. You're an artist, he said, and it wasn't a question. I was. Before. Sophia set down her brush. I'd forgotten how much I loved it. Don't forget again. Lorenzo kissed the top of her head, careful not to disturb her concentration. The family dinner is at 7. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be. The main house dining room was set for 20 people, smaller than the massive family gatherings, but still intimidating. Sophia recognized most of the faces as she entered on Lorenzo's arm. Gianna, several cousins, senior family advisors. They all stood as Lorenzo entered, a show of respect that reminded Sophia exactly who she was dating. The head of the DeLuca crime family, the most powerful man in the room, and he'd chosen her. Everyone, Lorenzo said, his voice commanding immediate attention. I want to formally introduce Sofia Valente. She's under my personal protection, and she's to be treated with the respect that entails. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now. Silence. Then Gianna stepped forward, offering Sophia a warm smile. Welcome, Sophia. We're glad to have you. Others echoed the sentiment, and slowly Sophia felt herself relax. This wasn't an interrogation or judgment. This was acceptance. Dinner flowed with easy conversation, and Sophia found herself actually enjoying the evening. These people were nothing like Adrian. They asked her genuine questions, listened to her answers, treated her like she had value. When she mentioned her painting, one of Lorenzo's cousins commissioned a piece on the spot. "I collect contemporary work," he explained, "and I'd love to support someone with actual talent instead of just buying names." It was such a simple kindness, but it made Sophia's throat tight with emotion. This was what family could be when it wasn't toxic, when it was built on mutual respect instead of control. After dinner, Lorenzo showed her his private office, a room she'd never entered before. It was masculine and comfortable, walls lined with books, a massive desk covered in papers and files. This was where he ran his empire. "I want you to see all of it," Lorenzo said, watching her take it in. "The business, the operations, the reality of what I do. No secrets between us." Sophia moved to the desk, looking at the documents spread across it. Shipping manifests, financial reports, coded messages she couldn't quite decipher. "Are all of these illegal?" "Some. Others are legitimate business that funds the illegal parts. It's complicated." Lorenzo leaned against the desk beside her. "I'm not going to lie to you, Sophia. I run operations that exist outside the law. I make decisions that have consequences. I'm not a good man by most definitions." "But you're a man who keeps his word, who protects the people under his care, who showed mercy when he didn't have to." Sophia turned to face him. "That matters more to me than whether everything you do is legal. You say that now, but what happens when you see the darker parts? When you realize the full scope of what I'm capable of?" "Then I'll decide how I feel about it." Sophia cupped his face. "Stop trying to scare me away, Lorenzo. I'm stronger than you think, and I'm not going anywhere." Lorenzo pulled her to him, his kiss desperate and claiming. "You're going to ruin me," he murmured against her mouth. "Good. You ruined me for anyone else the moment you saw me." They made love in his office, urgent and intense, claiming each other with a fierceness that left them both breathless. And when Lorenzo pulled her into his arms afterward, both of them still trying to catch their breath, Sophia felt something slot into place inside her chest. This was where she belonged. Not the guest house, not the memories of her old life, but here, with him, building something new from the ashes of everything that had burned. The peace lasted exactly 4 days. Sophia was in the courtyard painting when Marco, the head of security, appeared with an expression that made her stomach drop. "There's been an incident," he said carefully. "Mr. DeLuca wants you in the main house immediately." Sophia's hands were shaking as she set down her brush. "What kind of incident?" "He'll explain, but we need to move you now." The main house was in controlled chaos. Security personnel moving with purpose, phones ringing, Lorenzo at the center of it all barking orders with cold precision. When he saw Sophia, his expression shifted from commander to concerned. "Are you all right?" He crossed to her immediately, his hands framing her face, checking for injuries she didn't have. "I'm fine." Marco said there was an incident? "Adrian." Lorenzo's jaw clenched. He didn't go quietly after all. He's been making noise, talking to people he shouldn't, trying to leverage information about family operations to buy himself protection. Sophia's blood ran cold. "He's going to the police?" "Worse. He's going to our rivals, offering them intelligence in exchange for help getting revenge." Lorenzo's expression was carved from stone. He just signed his own death warrant. "Lorenzo, this isn't negotiable, Sophia. He's betrayed the family. There's only one punishment for that." Sophia felt sick. She hated Adrian, had every reason to want him punished, but the thought of Lorenzo ordering his death made everything real in a way she hadn't fully processed. This was his world. Betrayal meant death, not divorce. "Can't you just—" She struggled to find words. "Isn't there another way?" "No." Lorenzo's voice was final. "He knows too much. He's already endangered people. If I show mercy now, it signals weakness. Others will test me. More people will die. So you kill him instead." "Yes." Lorenzo met her gaze unflinchingly. "This is what I meant about the darker parts. This is who I am when family is threatened. Can you accept that?" Sophia wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to be the strong woman who could handle anything, but Lorenzo had asked for honesty, and she owed him that. "I don't know," she whispered. "I hate him. I want him to suffer for what he did. But the thought of you ordering his death, it makes it real. Makes me realize exactly what your world means. Then maybe you should go. Lorenzo's voice was gentle, but his expression was steel. Stay somewhere safe while this is handled. You don't need to watch this part. You're trying to protect me again. I'm trying to give you a choice. Stay and see everything, or step back until it's done. Either way, Adrian dies. That's not changing. Sophia's mind raced. This was the moment that mattered. The point where she either fully committed to Lorenzo's world or walked away from it. There was no middle ground. I'll stay, she said finally, but I need you to explain it to me. Why it has to be this way. Help me understand. Relief flashed across Lorenzo's face. He led her to his office, closing the door on the chaos outside, and spent the next hour explaining the brutal calculus of his world. How mercy to one traitor encouraged 10 more. How information leaks got people killed. How the only way to maintain control was through absolute consequences. It's not about revenge, Lorenzo said. It's about survival. If word spreads that Adrian can betray the family and live, every two-bit criminal with a grudge will think they can do the same. I'll spend the rest of my life putting out fires, protecting our people from threats that shouldn't exist. So you kill him to send a message. I kill him to protect everyone else. That's the job. That's the burden of this position. Lorenzo's expression was haunted. You think I enjoy it? Making these decisions? I've ordered deaths, Sophia. Good men, bad men, people who deserved it and some who probably didn't. It's the weight I carry so others don't have to. Sophia thought about the man who'd protected her, who'd shown her gentleness and care, who kissed her like she was precious. And she thought about the Don who'd exiled his own nephew without hesitation, who ran an empire built on violence, who would kill to protect what was his. They were the same man, both true, both real. Okay, she said quietly. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. Lorenzo pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Thank you for trying, for staying, for not running from the truth. I told you I was stronger than you thought. You're stronger than anyone I've ever known. The hit on Adrian was carried out 3 days later. Sophia didn't ask for details, and Lorenzo didn't offer them. She only knew when it was done because the tension that had been coiled through Lorenzo's shoulders finally released. It's over, he said simply, finding her in the courtyard where she'd been painting to distract herself. Adrian won't be a threat anymore. Sophia set down her brush and went to him, wrapping her arms around his waist, holding him while he held her. She felt the weight of what he'd done, what he carried, the darkness he shouldered so others could stay in the light. I love you, she said, and meant it. Not despite what you are, because of all of it, the darkness and the light, all of you. Lorenzo's breath caught. Sophia, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But Lorenzo cupped her face, his dark eyes intense and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I love you too, more than I thought I could love anything. You make me want to be better than I am. You're already enough. They stood in the courtyard as the sun set, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of broken lives, building something new that was entirely their own. The future was uncertain, dangerous, complicated in ways Sophia was still learning to navigate. But for the first time in her life, she was choosing her own path. And that path led straight to the man who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd given her back herself, who loved her with an intensity that both terrified and exhilarated her. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The weeks following Adrian's death brought an unexpected peace. Sophia's divorce was finalized with brutal efficiency. No contested assets, no drawn-out proceedings, just legal documentation confirming what had already been reality. She was free, truly, completely free for the first time in years. But freedom came with complications she hadn't anticipated. The Calabrese family is asking for a meeting, Gianna said during one of the weekly strategy sessions Sophia had started attending. Lorenzo had been reluctant at first, worried about exposing her to the dangerous details of his operations. But Sophia had insisted. If she was going to be part of his life, she needed to understand all of it. Lorenzo's expression darkened at the mention of the Calabrese name. When? Tomorrow night. They're claiming it's about the waterfront territories, but Gianna glanced at Sophia, then back to Lorenzo. We think it's about her. Sophia's stomach tightened. Me? Why would they care about me? Because you matter to Lorenzo, Gianna explained. And in our world, that makes you either an asset or a liability depending on who's looking. The Calabrese family has been testing boundaries for months. They see you as a potential weakness. Then they're idiots, Lorenzo said flatly. Schedule the meeting. Let them come. They'll learn exactly how wrong they are. After the meeting ended and the advisors filed out, Sophia stayed behind with Lorenzo in his office. He was tense, his shoulders tight with the kind of controlled anger she'd learned to recognize. Talk to me, she said, moving behind his chair to massage the knots in his shoulders. Lorenzo leaned back into her touch, sighing. The Calabrese family has been looking for leverage against me for years. My father destroyed their operations in the Eastern Territories, and they've never forgotten it. They're opportunistic vultures who strike when they think they see weakness. And they think I'm your weakness. They think you're a distraction, a civilian I've gotten soft over. Lorenzo turned to pull her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her waist. They don't understand that you're actually my strength, that you make me sharper, more focused, more dangerous because I have something worth protecting. Sophia kissed him softly. So what happens at this meeting? I remind them why no one challenges the DeLuca family and lives to profit from it. His voice dropped to that dangerous register. And I make it clear that touching you means starting a war they can't win. The meeting took place in neutral territory, an upscale restaurant the families used for negotiations. Lorenzo brought Gianna and 2 senior advisors, and despite protests from his security team, he brought Sophia. I want them to see you with me, he'd explained when she'd questioned the decision. Want them to understand that you're not hidden away like a shameful secret. You're mine, and I'm proud of that. The Calabrese delegation was already seated when they arrived. 3 men in expensive suits, faces hard, with the kind of cruelty that came from decades in the criminal underworld. The one in the middle, Vittorio Calabrese, was their current leader, a man in his 60s with cold eyes and a reputation for ruthlessness. Lorenzo, Vittorio said, his tone cordial but his gaze calculating. Thank you for meeting with us. And this must be the famous Sofia Valente. We've heard so much about you. The way he said it made Sophia's skin crawl, but she kept her expression neutral, channeling every ounce of the strength she'd built over the past months. Mr. Calabrese. They sat, and for the first few minutes, the conversation centered on business. Territory disputes, shipping routes, the usual negotiations between families. But Sophia felt the undercurrent, the way Vittorio's attention kept sliding to her, assessing, calculating. Finally, he said what he'd really come to say. I understand there was some unpleasantness with your former husband, Mrs. Valente. My condolences on his passing. It wasn't condolence. It was a probe testing to see how much she knew, how involved she was. Adrian made his choices, Sophia said evenly. He lived with the consequences. I've moved on. Indeed you have. Vittorio's smile didn't reach his eyes. Quite quickly, some might say, from one DeLuca to another. That's quite a transition. Lorenzo's hand tightened on Sophia's knee under the table, a warning to stay calm. But Sophia didn't need the warning. She'd spent 3 years being talked down to, dismissed, treated like she didn't matter. She was done accepting that from anyone. Are you implying something, Mr. Calabrese? She asked, her voice sweet but edged with steel. Because if you have concerns about my relationship with Lorenzo, perhaps you should address him directly, instead of hiding behind passive-aggressive commentary. Gianna made a small sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Vittorio's expression hardened. Spirited, he said. I can see the appeal. But spirit without understanding can be dangerous in our world. You're new to this life, Mrs. Valente. You don't yet understand how easily civilians become collateral damage. Is that a threat? Lorenzo's voice could have frozen fire. A warning. Vittorio leaned back in his chair. The DeLuca family has been strong for generations because you've been smart. Careful. You've kept personal entanglements separate from business. But now you're parading your girlfriend in front of the 5 families, making her a public figure in our world. That creates vulnerabilities. The only vulnerability here is your misunderstanding of the situation. Lorenzo's smile was sharp as a blade. Sophia isn't a weakness. She's family. And anyone who threatens family learns very quickly why the DeLuca name still commands respect while others have fallen to dust. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vittorio's men shifted in their seats, hands moving toward weapons they hadn't yet drawn. Lorenzo's security detail tensed, ready to respond. "Gentlemen," Gianna interjected smoothly, "I think we've strayed from the actual purpose of this meeting, the waterfront territories?" The conversation shifted back to business, but the damage was done. Lines had been drawn, positions clarified. When the meeting finally ended an hour later, Sophia felt wrung out from the tension. In the car ride back to the estate, Lorenzo was silent, his jaw clenched, one hand gripping Sophia's tightly. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I shouldn't have pushed back. I made things worse." "You made things perfect." Lorenzo turned to look at her, his expression fierce. "You showed them exactly what I needed them to see, that you're not some fragile civilian to be intimidated. You're strong, smart, dangerous in your own right. Vittorio expected you to cower, and instead you challenged him. That matters." "But he threatened me, basically said I'm a target now." "You've been a target since the moment you mattered to me. At least now everyone knows it openly, which means my enemies have to consider the cost of touching you." Lorenzo pulled her closer. "And that cost is war. Total, uncompromising war." Sophia leaned into him, processing the reality of her new life. She wasn't just Lorenzo's girlfriend. She was a piece on the board, a factor in complex power dynamics she was still learning to navigate. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like challenge, like purpose. "Teach me," she said suddenly. "Teach you what?" "Everything. How your world works, the politics, the power structures, the rules." Sophia met his gaze. "If I'm going to be part of this, I want to be useful, not just protected, but actually capable." Lorenzo studied her face for a long moment. "That's dangerous knowledge, Sophia. Once you know, you can't unknow. You become complicit in everything." "I'm already complicit. I love you. I live in your house. I attend your meetings. I'm in this whether I understand it or not. I'd rather understand." Something shifted in Lorenzo's expression. Pride, respect, maybe a trace of concern. "All right, but you need to be sure. Absolutely certain." "I am." So began Sophia's education in the criminal underworld. Lorenzo and Gianna became her teachers, explaining the intricate web of alliances, territories, and unwritten rules that governed the 5 families. She learned about their legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction companies, shipping firms that funded and concealed illegal operations. She learned about the code of silence that protected them all, the brutal efficiency with which traitors were handled, the careful balance of power that kept total war from erupting. And she learned about the Calabrese family's history with the DeLucas, a decades-long rivalry built on territory disputes, old grudges, and the kind of hatred that passed from father to son like inheritance. "Vittorio's father tried to kill mine 30 years ago," Lorenzo explained one evening in his office, maps and documents spread across the desk. "Failed, obviously. My father responded by destroying their operations in the Eastern Territories, crippling their income for a decade. They've never forgiven us for that. Every few years they test our defenses, looking for weaknesses. And they think I'm a weakness. They think you're leverage, a way to hurt me emotionally if they can't beat me strategically." Lorenzo's hand found hers. "That's why you need to know how to protect yourself, how to read situations, identify threats, respond appropriately." Sophia spent her mornings painting. She'd started accepting commissions and discovered she actually had talent people valued, and her afternoons learning the brutal calculus of Lorenzo's world. She learned to shoot, to fight, to read body language and detect lies. She sat in on meetings, absorbing the dynamics, learning who held real power versus who just postured, and slowly she transformed from Lorenzo's protected girlfriend into his acknowledged partner. The family noticed. At dinners, people started directing questions to her, asking her opinions, treating her like she had authority. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. 2 months after the Calabrese meeting, Sophia woke to chaos. The sound of gunfire jolted her from sleep. Lorenzo was already moving, pulling on clothes with practiced speed, grabbing the gun he kept in the nightstand. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice sharp with command. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Well, Lorenzo, what's happening? The Calabrese family just made their move like... His expression was carved from ice. They're attacking the estate. Sophia's blood ran cold. How many? I don't know yet, but they're not getting to you, I promise. He kissed her hard and fast. Stay here. Trust me. Then he was gone, and Sophia was alone with the sound of gunfire echoing through the estate. She locked the door as instructed, her hands shaking, her mind racing. This was real. The danger Lorenzo had warned her about, the violence that underpinned his world, it was happening right now. More gunshots, shouting. The sound of breaking glass. Sophia grabbed her phone, but there was no signal. They'd jammed communications. She was trapped in Lorenzo's bedroom with no way to know what was happening, whether he was safe, whether they were winning or losing. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Sophia paced the room, fighting panic, trying to remember her training. If someone broke through the door, where would she position herself? What would she use as a weapon? The letter opener on the desk, the heavy bookend, her own hands if it came to that. A massive explosion rocked the building. Sophia was thrown to the floor, her ears ringing, smoke beginning to seep under the door. Fire. They'd set fire to the estate. She couldn't stay here. Locked room or not, she'd die of smoke inhalation if she didn't move. Sophia grabbed the gun Lorenzo kept in the closet safe. He'd taught her the combination weeks ago, just in case, and made her way to the door. She opened it carefully, gun raised the way he'd taught her, checking corners, watching for threats. The hallway was chaos, smoke, debris, the distant sound of fighting. Sophia moved toward the main staircase, trying to remember the security routes Lorenzo had shown her, the safe paths out of the building. She was halfway down the stairs when a man appeared at the bottom. Not one of Lorenzo's security team. Calabrese family. Had to be. He saw her and raised his weapon. Sophia fired first. The recoil nearly knocked her backward, but the shot hit true. The man went down, clutching his shoulder, his gun clattering away. Sophia didn't wait to see if he'd get up. She ran, adrenaline drowning out thought, pure survival instinct taking over. She made it to the east wing, where the family's safe room was located. But before she could reach it, someone grabbed her from behind, arm wrapping around her throat in a chokehold. Well, well, a voice hissed in her ear. The famous Sofia Valente. Lorenzo's weakness made flesh. Sophia didn't think. She drove her elbow back into her attacker's ribs the way she'd been taught, stomped on his instep, twisted out of the hold. The man stumbled, surprised, and Sophia brought the gun up again. I'm nobody's weakness, she said, and fired. The man dropped. Sophia stood there, gun still raised, her whole body shaking with adrenaline and shock. She'd just killed someone. Actually killed a human being. The reality hit her in waves, horror, justification, terror, fierce satisfaction that she'd survived. Sophia! Lorenzo's voice. She turned to see him running toward her, blood on his shirt, his expression wild with fear and relief. He pulled her into his arms, checking her for injuries, his hands shaking. I told you to stay in the room, he said, but there was no anger in it, just overwhelming relief. The room was on fire. I had to move. Sophia was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Lorenzo, I killed someone. 2 people. You survived. Lorenzo cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You did what you had to do. That's all that matters. Security personnel flooded the hallway, securing the area. The gunfire had stopped. Whatever attack the Calabrese family had launched, it was over. Status? Lorenzo barked at Marco, who appeared looking battered, but alive. 12 attackers, 8 dead, 4 captured. We lost 3 men, 5 injured. Marco's gaze flicked to Sophia. She got 2 of them herself. That's impressive. Lorenzo's arm tightened around Sophia's waist. Get the prisoners secured. I want to know everything. Who ordered this? What they thought they'd accomplish? Every detail. And someone put out that fire before it spreads to the whole estate. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Sophia was checked by the family physician. Minor cuts, bruising, smoke inhalation, but nothing serious. Lorenzo never left her side, his presence a constant anchor as the estate buzzed with security personnel, cleanup crews, and grim-faced family members arriving to survey the damage. By dawn, the immediate crisis was contained. The fire was out, the attackers were dealt with, the estate secured. Lorenzo brought Sofia to his office, poured them both whiskey with shaking hands, and pulled her into his lap. "I almost lost you," he said, his voice raw. "When I heard the gunfire near the bedroom, when I couldn't get to you, but you didn't lose me. I'm here. I'm okay." Sofia pressed her forehead to his. "And I can protect myself. You taught me that." "You shouldn't have to." Lorenzo's expression was tortured. "This is my fault. I brought you into this world, made you a target. Stop." Sofia pulled back to look at him. "I chose this. Chose you. I knew the risks, and tonight proved I can handle them. I'm not some fragile thing that breaks under pressure, Lorenzo. I'm stronger than that." "You're the strongest person I know." Lorenzo kissed her desperately. "But I need you to understand, this was a warning. The real attack is still coming. Vittorio won't stop until one of us is dead. Then we make sure it's him." Lorenzo's expression shifted, seeing something in her that made him pause. "You mean that?" "Yes." Sofia's voice was steady despite the trembling in her hands. "He attacked our home, killed your people, tried to kill me. This isn't about territory or business anymore. This is war. So let's fight it." Over the next week, Lorenzo and his advisors planned their response. The 4 captured attackers had given up valuable intelligence under interrogation. Vittorio had orchestrated the attack personally, convinced that killing Sofia would break Lorenzo's control and allow the Calabrese family to seize De Luca territories. He'd been catastrophically wrong. "We hit them where it hurts most," Gianna proposed during a strategy session. "Their shipping operations. Without those, they lose 70% of their income. And we expose their connections to the Port Authority," another advisor added. "Get law enforcement involved. Let the legal system tear apart what we don't finish ourselves." Sofia listened, absorbing the brutal efficiency with which they planned destruction. This was the reality of Lorenzo's world, not the romantic danger she'd imagined, but calculated violence designed to eliminate threats permanently. "What about Vittorio himself?" she asked, and the room went quiet. "If we destroy his operations but leave him alive, doesn't he just rebuild? Come after us again?" Lorenzo's gaze met hers across the table. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we end this permanently. Remove him from the equation entirely." Gianna's eyebrows rose. "That's direct." "It's also right," Lorenzo said slowly, pride and concern warring in his expression. "But taking out the head of a family creates complications. The other families will demand an accounting. We'll need justification they can't dispute." "You have it," Sofia said. "He attacked your home without provocation, killed your people, tried to murder your partner. By your own laws, that's a declaration of war. You're within your rights to respond with total force." The room was silent as the advisors processed this. Then one by one, heads began to nod. Sofia had just proposed a course of action that would reshape the power structure of the entire criminal underworld, and she'd done it with the cool logic of someone born to this life. Lorenzo called for a break, pulling Sofia aside into his private office. "Do you understand what you just did in there?" "I proposed we kill Vittorio Calabrese." "You did more than that. You proved you think like one of us. Like family." Lorenzo's hands framed her face. "But I need to know, are you okay with that? With being part of planning someone's death?" Sofia thought about the men she'd killed in the hallway, the terror of being attacked in her own home, the reality of the world she'd chosen. "He tried to kill me, tried to kill you. If we let him live, he'll just try again. So yes, I'm okay with it, because this time it's not about revenge, it's about survival." "I love you," Lorenzo said fiercely, "and I'm terrified of what this world is turning you into." "It's not turning me into anything. It's just revealing who I always was underneath." Sofia kissed him. "I was never the helpless victim Adrian tried to create. I was always this strong. I just needed the right circumstances to prove it." The operation against the Calabrese family was executed with surgical precision. Their shipping operations were destroyed in coordinated attacks across 3 cities. Their connections to corrupt officials were exposed through carefully leaked evidence, triggering federal investigations. And Vittorio Calabrese himself was killed in what appeared to be a robbery gone wrong, though everyone in the criminal world knew exactly what it really was. Justice. DeLuca style. The other families called for a council meeting to address the situation. Lorenzo went willingly, bringing Sofia with him over the protests of his security team. They need to see us together, he'd explained. Need to understand that attacking her means attacking me, that we're a unified force. The council consisted of the heads of the 5 families, meeting in a private estate under neutral terms. Sofia sat beside Lorenzo, her spine straight, her expression calm despite the weight of 5 pairs of eyes assessing her. Lorenzo, began the head of the Rossetti family, an elderly man named Dante. You've eliminated an entire family's leadership. That requires explanation. Vittorio Calabrese attacked my home, Lorenzo said evenly. Killed 3 of my men and attempted to murder Sofia. Under our laws, that justified total war. I responded accordingly. He claims the attack was justified because you've made a civilian into a liability, another family head interjected. That you've grown soft, allowed personal feelings to compromise family security. Then he was a fool. Lorenzo's voice dropped to that dangerous register. Sofia isn't a liability. She's an asset. She killed 2 of the attackers herself. She's been integral to our strategic planning. She understands our world and contributes to it. Any of you who doubt that can test the theory at your own peril. Silence. Then Dante spoke again, his gaze on Sofia. And you, Mrs. Valente? What do you say to accusations that you've made Lorenzo vulnerable? Sofia met his eyes without flinching. I'd say that anyone who mistakes love for weakness doesn't understand either. Lorenzo is stronger with me because I give him something worth protecting. And I'm stronger with him because he gives me the freedom to be exactly who I am. Together we're more formidable than either of us alone. Vittorio learned that lesson the hard way. A slow smile spread across Dante's weathered face. Well said. It seems the DeLuca family has gained quite an asset indeed. He looked around at the other family heads. I see no fault in Lorenzo's actions. Vittorio overstepped, and he paid the price. Let that be the end of it. One by one, the other heads nodded agreement. The matter was settled. The Calabrese family's remaining members would be absorbed into other families or allowed to maintain minor operations under strict oversight. The DeLuca family's dominance was reaffirmed, and Sofia had been officially recognized as part of that power structure. On the drive back to the estate, Lorenzo was quiet, his hand clasped tightly with Sofia's. You were magnificent in there, he finally said. I was terrified. But you didn't show it. That's what mattered. Lorenzo brought her hand to his lips. You've become everything I never knew I needed, Sofia, my partner in every sense of the word. Does that scare you? Terrifies me. Because now I have something to lose that actually matters more than power or control or empire. Lorenzo's expression was vulnerable in the dimming light. I've built my whole life on being untouchable, and you've made me desperately, completely touchable. Sofia shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Then we protect each other, face whatever comes together. That's what partnership means. Together, Lorenzo agreed and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like promise and future, and the kind of love that could survive anything. The weeks that followed brought a new normal to the DeLuca estate. Repairs were completed, security was upgraded, and life settled into rhythms that felt almost domestic. Sofia continued painting, her work gaining recognition in galleries that had no idea she was dating one of the most dangerous men in the criminal underworld. Lorenzo continued running his empire, but now with Sofia as his trusted confidant, the person he discussed strategy with late into the night. They were building something neither had expected, a genuine partnership forged in fire and sealed in blood, where both brought equal strength to the relationship and neither had to diminish themselves to fit. And one morning, as Sofia stood in the bathroom feeling inexplicably nauseous for the 3rd day in a row, staring at a pregnancy test showing 2 unmistakable lines, she realized their partnership was about to expand in ways that would change everything. Sofia stared at the test for a full minute, her mind struggling to process what those 2 lines meant. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Lorenzo DeLuca's child, the man who'd saved her from a nightmare, who'd become her partner in every sense, who ran a criminal empire with calculated precision. He was going to be a father. Terror and joy warred in her chest. They'd never discussed children, never talked about building a family beyond the partnership they'd created. Lorenzo's life was dangerous, violent, unpredictable. Was bringing a child into that world responsible? Safe? Fair? But beneath the fear, something else bloomed. Hope. Excitement. The fierce protective instinct that told her this baby, their baby, would be loved and protected with every resource at their disposal. Sophia hid the test in her purse and spent the day trying to figure out how to tell him. Lorenzo was in back-to-back meetings all afternoon, handling some complicated territory negotiation with the Rossetti family. She painted to distract herself, but her brushstrokes were erratic, her concentration shot. Maria found her in the courtyard around 3, staring at a canvas she'd barely touched. "You look pale," the older woman observed, concern creasing her features. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, just processing something." Sophia set down her brush. "Maria, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Lorenzo's never mentioned wanting children. Do you know if that's something he's ever considered?" Maria's expression softened with understanding. "He never thought he could have that kind of life. The dangers of his position, the enemies, the constant threat. He's always believed family was a luxury he couldn't afford." "Why do you ask?" Sophia's hand drifted to her still flat stomach. Maria's eyes widened as she understood. "Oh, Sophia, I just found out this morning. I don't know how to tell him. What if he doesn't want this? What if he thinks it's too dangerous?" "That man loves you more than his own life," Maria said firmly. "Whatever fears he has, they won't change that. Tell him. Trust him with this." Lorenzo returned to the estate around 7, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The Rossetti situation is resolved," he said, kissing Sophia in greeting. "Took all damn day, but we reached an agreement that benefits everyone. How was your day?" "Interesting." Sophia's heart was hammering. "Can we talk? Privately?" Lorenzo's expression shifted to concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to tell you something important." They went to his office, the space that had become their sanctuary for serious conversations. Lorenzo poured himself a whiskey, offered her one, frowned when she declined. "You never turn down whiskey when I'm drinking," he observed. "What's going on?" Sophia took a breath, gathering courage. "I'm pregnant." The glass stopped halfway to Lorenzo's mouth. He set it down slowly, carefully, his expression unreadable. "You're sure?" "I took 3 tests, all positive. I have an appointment with Dr. Chen tomorrow to confirm, but yes, I'm sure." Lorenzo was silent for so long Sophia's anxiety spiked into fear. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the darkening grounds. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion she couldn't identify. "I never thought I could have this. A family, a child, someone to pass all this to who actually came from love instead of obligation." He turned to face her, and Sophia saw tears in his eyes. "I'm terrified, Sophia. Terrified of what my world means for our baby. Terrified I'll fail as a father the way I've failed at so many other things." Sophia crossed to him, taking his hands. "You won't fail. You'll protect our child the way you've protected me. Love them the way you love me. That's all any parent can do. What if it's not enough? What if my enemies? Then we deal with them, together, like we deal with everything else." Sophia placed his hand on her stomach. "This baby is already loved, Lorenzo. Already protected by the most powerful man I know. That's more than most children start with." Lorenzo pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "A baby," he whispered. "We're having a baby. Are you happy?" "I'm fucking terrified. But yes, I'm happy." He pulled back to cup her face, his expression fierce and tender. "You've given me everything I never knew I wanted. A reason to be better. A future worth fighting for. Now a child. How am I supposed to deserve any of this? By being exactly who you are. The man who saw me when I was invisible. Who gave me back my strength. Who loves me enough to let me be dangerous." Sophia kissed him softly. "That's the father I want for our baby. Not some sanitized version. The real you." Lorenzo kissed her deeply, his hands gentle on her waist, already protective of the life growing inside her. "Everything changes now. Security, operations, risk assessment. We need to plan for every contingency." "We will. But tonight, can we just be happy? Just us and this news and the future we're building? Yes. Lorenzo swept her into his arms, carrying her toward their bedroom. Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we start fortifying the world our child will be born into. The next morning, Dr. Chen confirmed what Sophia already knew. 8 weeks pregnant, everything progressing normally, due date in early spring. Lorenzo sat beside Sophia during the appointment, holding her hand, asking detailed questions about every aspect of the pregnancy with the same intense focus he applied to business negotiations. I want the best prenatal care available, he told Dr. Chen. Whatever she needs, wherever she needs to go, cost is irrelevant. Lorenzo, Sophia said, amused despite herself. I'm pregnant, not made of glass. You're carrying my child. That makes you more precious than anything else in my world. Lorenzo's expression was dead serious. Humor me, Dr. Chen smiled. I'll put together a comprehensive care plan. But Sophia's healthy and strong. With proper monitoring, there's no reason to expect complications. As they left the medical building, Lorenzo's security details surrounding them in tighter formation than usual, Sophia noticed the way people's eyes tracked them. Word was spreading fast. Lorenzo De Luca's woman was pregnant. The implications rippled through the criminal underworld like seismic waves. We need to tell the family, Lorenzo said as they drove back to the estate. Before rumors start spreading, I want them to hear it from us. That evening, Lorenzo called an emergency family meeting. The main dining room filled with cousins, advisors, senior members, everyone wondering what crisis had prompted the summons. Sophia stood beside Lorenzo at the head of the table, her spine straight, ready for whatever reaction came. Thank you for coming on short notice, Lorenzo began. I have news that affects the entire family's future. Sophia is pregnant with my child. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Gianna started clapping, and within moments the entire room erupted in congratulations. People crowded around them, offering blessings and promises of protection, treating the baby like it already belonged to all of them. This is incredible, Gianna said, hugging Sophia. A new generation, proof that this family has a future beyond just business and territory. Dante Rossetti, who'd been invited as a gesture of respect between families, raised his glass. To Lorenzo and Sophia, may your child inherit the best of both of you and lead this family into prosperity. Everyone drank to that, and Sophia felt the weight of their expectations, their hopes. This baby wasn't just hers and Lorenzo's, it belonged to an entire empire. Later that night, alone in their bedroom, Sophia voiced the fear she'd been carrying. What if I can't do this? Be a mother in your world. Raise a child surrounded by danger. Lorenzo pulled her close, his hand resting on her stomach. You killed 2 armed men to protect yourself. You stood before the 5 families and proved you belonged there. You've transformed from invisible wife to undeniable force in less than a year. If anyone can raise a child in this world and keep them safe, it's you. We've never talked about what kind of life we want for our baby, whether we want them in the family business or protected from it. That's their choice to make when they're old enough, Lorenzo said firmly. But until then, we give them everything. Love, security, options. We don't force them into this life, but we don't hide it from them either. We raise them honest about who we are and let them decide who they want to be. Sophia turned in his arms, studying his face. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else since you told me. This baby changes everything, Sophia. My priorities, my legacy, my definition of success. It's not about power anymore. It's about building something that lasts beyond me, beyond us. I love you, Sophia whispered. I love you both. Lorenzo's hand pressed gently against her stomach. More than I thought I could love anything. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through fall and into winter. Sophia's body changed, her belly growing round with their child, and Lorenzo became almost comically protective. He rearranged his entire schedule to attend every doctor's appointment. He hired additional security. He had the guest house completely renovated with a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. You're going overboard, Sophia laughed, watching him debate between 2 nearly identical cribs. I'm preparing appropriately, Lorenzo corrected. Our child deserves the best. Our child needs parents who aren't insane with anxiety. Pick the crib on the left and let's focus on more important things. But despite the joy, tension simmered beneath the surface. The criminal underworld was never truly at peace, and Lorenzo's enemies hadn't forgotten about Sofia or the power she represented. Threats came periodically: anonymous warnings, suspicious activity near the estate, intelligence about rivals discussing whether a pregnant woman made Lorenzo more cautious or more dangerous. The answer was definitively the latter. When a small-time operation tried to kidnap Sofia during a gallery showing of her artwork, Lorenzo's response was swift and brutal. The entire organization was dismantled within 48 hours, its leaders vanishing in ways that made the other families take notice. "You can't kill everyone who looks at me wrong," Sofia said after the incident, despite being shaken by how close the attempt had come. "Watch me," Lorenzo replied, his voice cold steel. "You and our baby are the line no one crosses, ever. That message needs to be crystal clear." Sofia understood his fear. She felt it too, the vulnerability of carrying something so precious in a world so dangerous. But she also trusted Lorenzo's ability to protect them, trusted the fortress he'd built around their lives. As winter deepened and her due date approached, Sofia found herself reflecting on the transformation her life had undergone. A year ago, she'd been trapped in a fog of Adrian's making, invisible and controlled, slowly disappearing. Now, she was a recognized force in the criminal underworld, an artist with a growing reputation, a woman preparing to become a mother with the most powerful man she'd ever known. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Lorenzo one snowy evening as they sat in front of the fireplace, her feet in his lap while he massaged them. "Choosing me? Getting involved with all my drama?" Lorenzo looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Regret you? Sofia, you're the best decision I've ever made. You gave me a reason to be more than just the Dawn, more than just power and control. You made me human again." "Even with all the complications? The danger?" "Especially with those." Lorenzo's hand moved to her swollen belly, feeling their baby kick. "This, you, our child, the life we're building. This is what matters. Everything else is just logistics." The baby arrived on a bright March morning, 2 weeks early but healthy and perfect. Sofia's labor was long and difficult, and Lorenzo stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, talking her through contractions, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him face down armed enemies. When their daughter finally entered the world, tiny and screaming and absolutely perfect, Lorenzo cried openly. "She's beautiful," he whispered, cradling the baby with practiced gentleness that shouldn't have been possible from hands that had dealt so much violence. "She's perfect." "What should we name her?" Sofia asked, exhausted and elated. Lorenzo looked down at his daughter, then at Sofia, his expression full of wonder. "Elena, after my mother. She was the strongest woman I knew before you." "Elena De Luca." Sofia smiled. "It's perfect." The family descended on the hospital within hours, security turning an entire floor into a fortress. Gianna brought flowers. Maria brought tears of joy. Dante Rossetti sent a gift that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everyone wanted to see the newest De Luca, the child that represented a future none of them had expected. But when visiting hours ended and it was just the three of them, Lorenzo, Sofia, and baby Elena, the reality settled over them like a blanket. "We made this," Lorenzo said softly, watching Elena sleep in Sofia's arms. "Something good and pure out of all the darkness." "She's going to change everything," Sofia said. "Already has." "Good. Let her change it. Let her make us better." Lorenzo kissed Sofia's forehead, then Elena's. "I spent 45 years thinking I couldn't have this. A family, love, something worth living for beyond power. You proved me wrong about all of it." They brought Elena home to the estate a few days later, and life reorganized itself around this tiny, demanding creature. Lorenzo, who'd terrified grown men with a look, became putty in his daughter's hands. He took middle-of-the-night feedings without complaint. He learned to change diapers with the same precision he applied to business deals. He read parenting books like military strategy manuals. Sofia watched him transform and fell in love with him all over again. "You're a natural," she observed one evening, watching him rock Elena to sleep with infinite patience. "I'm terrified every second," Lorenzo admitted. "That I'll do something wrong. That my world will touch her. That she'll grow up and realize her father isn't a good man." You're a great man. You're just not a simple man. Sophia moved to stand beside them, looking down at their sleeping daughter. And she's going to grow up knowing she's loved absolutely, protected fiercely, and given every choice we can offer her. That's what matters. As Elena grew from newborn to infant, the estate transformed into something that felt almost domestic. There were toys in Lorenzo's office, baby monitors in every room, a schedule built around feeding times and naps rather than just business meetings. And slowly, carefully, Lorenzo began making changes to his operations. He shifted more resources toward legitimate businesses, gradually distancing the family from the most dangerous criminal enterprises. It was a long-term strategy that would take years to fully implement, but the direction was clear. I want Elena to have choices, he explained to Gianna during a planning meeting Sophia attended. If she wants to be part of the family business, fine, but I don't want her forced into it because there's no alternative. I want legitimate options. That's a major strategic shift, Gianna noted. Some of the family won't like it. Then they can adjust or leave. Lorenzo's tone left no room for argument. My daughter's future is more important than tradition. The family did adjust. Slowly at first, then with growing enthusiasm as they saw the benefits. Legitimate businesses were more stable, less risky, easier to pass to the next generation. The criminal elements remained. Lorenzo's world couldn't completely abandon its roots, but they became one facet of a more complex empire rather than the entire foundation. Elena's first birthday arrived with shocking speed. The party was massive. Family, friends, allies, all celebrating the child who'd changed the De Luca family's trajectory. Sophia watched her daughter toddle around the courtyard, already showing signs of her father's determination and her mother's creativity, and felt overwhelming gratitude for how far they'd come. Happy? Lorenzo asked, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Incredibly. Sophia leaned back against him. A year ago, I was terrified I couldn't do this. Be a mother in your world. Now I can't imagine anything else. You've done more than survive. You've thrived. Become exactly who you were always meant to be. Lorenzo kissed her neck. The woman who was invisible is now impossible to ignore. The one who is controlled now helps run an empire. And the one who is told she was worthless is raising a daughter who will never doubt her value. Sophia turned in his arms, seeing the man who'd saved her, loved her, given her back herself. We did good, didn't we? We did perfect. That evening, after the party ended and Elena was asleep in her crib, Sophia and Lorenzo stood on the terrace overlooking the estate. The grounds were peaceful, secure, a fortress built on love as much as power. Do you ever think about how this started? Sophia asked. How improbable it all was. Every day. Lorenzo pulled her close. I think about the woman who was disappearing under abuse and drugs, who could have stayed broken, who instead chose to fight back and become unstoppable. I think about the man who could have ignored my suffering, who instead risked family conflict to save someone who meant nothing to him. Sophia smiled up at him. We saved each other, really. We did. And we built something neither of us expected. Lorenzo's hand cupped her face. An empire built on partnership. A family built on choice. A future built on love strong enough to survive anything. Do you think we're done with the danger and the threats? There will always be challenges, but we've proven we can handle them. Together, we're more powerful than anything trying to break us. Lorenzo kissed her slowly, deeply, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you and Elena have everything you deserve. Sophia melted into his embrace, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From invisible wife trapped in a nightmare to powerful partner in one of the most feared families in the underworld. From victim to survivor to warrior. From alone to loved beyond measure. She'd been drugged, controlled, told she was worthless. She'd escaped, fought back, killed to survive. She'd fallen in love with a dangerous man and helped him become something more. She'd faced down crime families and proven she belonged in their world. She'd become a mother and watched the most powerful man she knew transform into a devoted father. And through it all, she'd discovered the truth Adrian had tried so hard to bury. She was strong, valuable, worthy of love and respect and partnership. She was Sofia Valente, artist, strategist, mother, queen of an empire she'd helped reshape. The woman who'd once been invisible now commanded attention in every room she entered. The one who'd been controlled now made decisions that affected hundreds of lives, and the one who'd been nothing was now everything to the man who'd seen her when no one else could. "I love you," Sophia whispered against Lorenzo's lips. "I love you more than power, more than empire, more than my own life," Lorenzo responded. "You and Elena are my legacy. Everything else is just details." They stood together on the terrace as night fell over the De Luca estate, two people who'd found each other in darkness and built something luminous. Behind them, their daughter slept peacefully, protected by love and power in equal measure. Before them stretched a future they'd fight to protect, nurture, and pass on to the next generation. Sophia had started this journey as a prisoner in her own life. She ended it as a queen who'd chosen her throne, her king, and the empire they'd build together. And in the process, she'd discovered the most important truth of all. Freedom wasn't about escaping danger or avoiding darkness. Freedom was about choosing your battles, claiming your power, and refusing to disappear no matter who tried to make you small. She'd been invisible once. Never again. Lorenzo held her close as stars began to appear overhead, and Sophia knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Not despite the danger or complexity, but because of it. Because this life, this love, this family, they were real in a way nothing else had ever been. And real, messy, complicated, dangerous, beautiful life was infinitely better than the safe, controlled disappearance Adrian had planned for her. Sophia had been saved, but more importantly, she'd saved herself. And in doing so, she'd found everything she'd never known she was missing. The end was really just the beginning. And what a beginning it was.